And this testimony involves my oldest son when he was about 3 or 4 years old again. He had a very sore throat for about 2 or 3 days. He couldn't drink, he couldn't eat, he couldn't do anything. And when I looked, I had him to open up his mouth real wide and stick out his tongue. And when I looked at his throat, I saw like white cauliflower chunks in his throat. So here's the thing that I'm trying to get people to understand through my testimonies also. It's not like I was just this bold woman that can take anything. It's just as stuff came up, I trusted God and turned them over to God. Were sometimes my heart beating fast and I was really wondering whether this was going to go through? Absolutely. There were times when the challenges were a bit difficult, but always, not ever, did God not come through with his promise of healing. Never. So this particular time, like I said, he was 3 or 4 years old. He had, I don't want to say what he had because I didn't take him to the doctor to get a diagnosis, but he had a problem with his throat. And I was living with my older sister and her husband, Jerome. I did a video on Jerome when I tried to pray for him and his diabetes, and he wouldn't receive that prayer. This is the same Jerome. And so Jerome loved my son because we lived with them. So he like seen Keith as one of his sons because he had 2 sons also, and they were all stair steps. Keith was the youngest. He had a son older than Keith, 2 years older, and one year older. So they were like all growing up together. So anyway, Jerome was getting angry with me because I wasn't taking my son to the doctor to get a checkup. And he he was getting really, really angry with me, very short with me. And Keith was lounging around and laying around. He couldn't eat, he couldn't drink, and all of this stuff. And so Jerome came and told me, he was like, if that boy is not well in 3 days, he said, I'm going to give you 3 days. And if that boy is not well in 3 days, I'm going to call DCFS and then I'm going to take him to the doctor myself. And when he said that, I didn't get irritated or angry. I knew that that was out of love. And so I took the challenge. I said, okay, 3 days. And at that time, it wasn't just, I was still leaning on eating right, and certain foods would help with healing and stuff like that. I was into that then. That's where my faith was. As long as you're obeying God and doing what you're supposed to be doing, he would send healing. And so I went out and I got my son some carrot juice, some fresh carrot juice. I got him some honey from the health food store. You know, we was brought up with all of this stuff. And so I asked my mother what particular tea. At that time, I would give him tea for something. And so she told me what tea to get and all of that stuff. And so I gave my son that stuff for about 3 days. And I'm telling you, the third day, on the third day, now I didn't know about Jesus being resurrected on the third day. I had no clue because remember, our church didn't teach us about Jesus. But anyway, on the third day, Keith's throat cleared up, totally up. He just went back to his normal self. He was drinking, he was eating, he was doing everything. When he woke up that morning of his healing, I looked at his throat, I saw that everything was clear, and I told him, I said, go in the room and show your uncle that. And so he ran in the room, Uncle Jerome, and he opened up his mouth wide and stuck out his tongue, and Jerome looking at him. He just looked at him. He didn't say anything to me. He just looked at him, almost like, yeah, okay, whatever. Because, I mean, you gave me a challenge. You said if he wasn't healed in 3 days, that this is what you were going to do. So now that he's healed, this third day, what's going on? So me and my brother-in-law were always in a debate about God and about doing things God's way. Always. Because he, like I said, he always thought that my brothers, my siblings, and I were, he just thought we was mistreated because we didn't celebrate Christmas, we didn't celebrate Easter, we didn't eat pork and all of these things. He just thought that we were robbed of our childhood, and that was just his opinion. So anyway, he came strong with that. So he didn't acknowledge God at that time, but eventually he would. Yep. That was a good testimony though.